Well. Hello guys, came for 15, talking sports on the channel. I thought I would do a live stream of obviously this week's slate of games for at least for Sunday. I know we have a one more game tomorrow, which is Lions and Ravens. But I don't know if I'm going to start doing this more often, but maybe I might do this on a weekly basis, and that's maybe just giving my thoughts on some NFL games that obviously I watched throughout the Sunday, and just giving my takes and everything and my thoughts on how they do. So no, I typically do predictions for the next week. For basically the next following week, and I don't really give my take. Sometimes in those videos, I do give my analysis of the previous game, but it's kind of mostly about the prediction. We kind of sometimes, me and my uncle, we do talk about how the team played in that last week, but I thought I just wanted to do a whole week breakdown of at least the games that I saw today. Some of the shocking games that I ended up seeing today, because there was a lot of shocking games, and the way how these games ended in some cases, which was absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. I think we can all say the morning slot games were absolutely crazy with some of the games that we got. Obviously, Eagles, Rams. Then you had Tampa Bay versus the Jets, and then you obviously had the crazy Browns come back on the Packers and stuff like that. But yeah, man, it was just a crazy week of football. Now, again, hit that subscribe button if you guys want to get more sports content on the channel. Again, stuff on the channel, I mostly do, again, NFL breakdowns in terms of predictions and stuff like that for the week. So expect next Saturday, week 4 prediction with my Uncle Daryl. If not, I'll just be by myself if he's too busy to do it. And then obviously, I do my Chicago Bears game recap. I think the Bears, that we play another afternoon slot game. I did my Bears, game recap against the Dallas Cowboys, and stuff like that. I'll be a little bit more objective of what I saw from both sides, mostly more talking on the Cowboys side type of things and stuff like that than the Bears side. If you want my full Bears thoughts on that, which I'll talk a bit about today, but not as much like, you know, in this live stream, right? Go check out my Bears recap where I kind of give my Bears hat fan perspective of the whole thing and stuff like that. So, yeah, and then again, look forward to next week if you want to hear my thoughts about my Chicago Bears, about how we did against the Raiders, which will be next week after the Raiders game concludes. I typically won't go live with that. I'll just have a pre-recorded video and just upload it when I obviously have time on my Sunday to do that. So yeah, but and then yeah, again, this might be a staple going forward for the rest of the season. I'll see how it goes and stuff like that. So if you're watching this after the live stream's over, definitely do jump in live if you want to hear my real time thoughts, and you want to just leave some comments in the comment section so you can everything. So yeah, and then obviously with the basketball season approaching, I'm a Clippers fan, so I'm going to try to be more consistent when it comes to Clippers recap. But yeah, and maybe for the Clippers recap, which I think may be better, is maybe just doing actual live recaps of the game when I have time instead of just doing a video or something. I think honestly, I might just do live streams of those game recaps and stuff like that instead of whatsoever. Anyways, I think I talked enough about promoting about the channel, so let's get into this Sunday slate of games in terms of some of the games that were crazy. Now, I'm gonna get through some of the games that I'm gonna be honest, I did not pay attention or I did not watch. Right. So let's start off with Bengals Vikings. Right. I watched maybe like the first half of the game, and even by the end of the first half, it was a blowout. The Vikings ended up blowing out the Bengals, 48-10. Carson Wentz started this game, and they're saying that JJ McCarthy's not. I think I saw something on Twitter where Kevin O'Connell said JJ McCarthy, he won't be ready till like week 7, right? So you just have it where Carson Wentz is running the ship. And so far, so good, right? Then again, you play a Bengals team that they're starting of their backup quarterback in Jake Browning, who didn't really do much of anything. He threw like 2 pick sixes or something like that, from I guess what I heard. He did not look good. The Bengals offense did not look good at all. Their defense, again, is suspect. While meanwhile, the Vikings, they get a quality win to help them keep pace in the NFC North now. They are officially tied for first place in the NFC North now due to due to the Packers losing today. So they're basically tied for first place and everything. So yeah, look, Carson Wentz did his thing. He was serviceable at best. There's nothing you can realistically ask of him to do. It's clear that we see like the defense clearly is the backbone of this team for the Vikings. The defense is what's keeping the Vikings in games. It's kind of just what does the quarterback do? Like right now, they're having a quarterback issue with JJ McCarthy and Carson Wentz of the fact that they got the talent around them. It's just if they're not doing anything productive offensively, well, then the team looks like it's just a bunch of weapons, and then you got to figure out your quarterback issue, and then the defense is doing its best to stay in games. Because you look at last week's game against the Falcons, for example, they stayed in that game, for the longest time, and so it was basically up to JJ McCarthy and the offense to do anything, and they did not do shit. So that's kind of the thing there, right? But the Vikings get another win to keep them in first place of the NFC North, tied with the Green Bay Packers. Another game I didn't watch is the Colts and Titans. Now I thought this game would actually be a lot closer than I initially thought, and it actually wasn't. Like at one point when I was checking the score, it was like 17-6 at one point in the game. And yeah, look, the Colts are for real. I texted my uncle Daryl at one point, while I'm watching the other morning slate of games, and I'm just checking in the score and seeing what Daniel Jones is doing. And yeah, the Colts are for real. I don't. It really does look like the Colts are for real. It looks like Daniel Jones is for real. So the Colts may have actually struck gold with Daniel Jones, who they're now calling Indiana Jones. I'm absolutely shocked that Daniel Jones, 3 weeks into the season, is looking like he's on the track to be a Pro Bowl quarterback. Like, it absolutely is, again, befuddling me how good he looks. Now, again, it's still early on. We're only 3 weeks into the season, but this dude looks really freaking good. He's being efficient. He's not turning the ball over, and he's actually helping the Colts win games more than lose games. And again, the Colts defense is pretty good. And then, you add in with the passing ability of, Daniel Jones, it only makes Jonathan Taylor's job easy. And I think that's also the thing that's helping. The fact that Daniel Jones has a run game to rely on, it's making it to where he doesn't have to do as much. He just has to play regular game day quarterback because you got, Jonathan Taylor and a good offensive line in front of him, as opposed to his time in New York where he struggled with that. And yes, he did have Saquon Barkley with them, right? But again, it's a proven quarterback. And plus, I think that 1 year he was with near the tail end with Minnesota, where he just basically sat, did nothing, and just kind of was in the meetings with Kevin O'Connell. It seems like that really helped out with him playing better quarterback stuff. So, good win for the Colts. Good win for the Colts. I got to see I think the Colts, looking at the next week's schedule, I won't give my prediction, but the Colts have a tough game on the road against the Rams. So that's actually going to be a really good test to see, like, okay, now, the last few weeks, you've been playing average to maybe below average competition. Obviously, last week they played a stout Broncos defense. Now you're really going to have like a test against what people may see as an NFC contender against the Rams, right? So there's that. Another game that I didn't check out, I didn't watch at all, was the Panthers Falcons. That game seemed to be an absolute blowout, like straight up absolute blowout. Um, I don't know how the Falcons lost to the Panthers 30-0. Especially coming off a very impressive win on the road against a really strong Vikings defense. And they had a great, defensive performance against JJ McCarthy. But, maybe you can chop it up to the fact that Bryce Young has a few more years playing the game than JJ McCarthy has. But honestly, this is a pretty bad loss by the Falcons, especially for a Falcons team that is trying to keep up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who lead the division. And right now, the NFC South is looking like it's basically Tampa Bay's division to lose, and all the other teams are just bumbling around doing nothing. I don't know why. Again, I don't know. I didn't watch this game, so I don't know why the Falcons got blown out crazy like that against an inferior team. I understand they're on the road, but still, like, you should beat the Panthers. The Panthers are not, from what we've seen 2 weeks into the season, they're not the best of teams, albeit last week they tried to come back against the Cardinals and everything, and they play a competitive second half. They're still, from what we see, is not a good team. But then again, maybe the Panthers, maybe might be a better team than we all think they are, and it just kind of comes down to how Bryce Young plays this week, or the set week. But that's a pretty bad loss by the Falcons. Losing to a division rival, especially an inferior division rival, that's not good, because now the Panthers do have a game up on you in the division. And it's already bad because now you're already 0-2 in the division, because you lost week 1 to you lost week 1 to the Buccaneers, and now you lose in week 3 to another division rival in the Panthers. So you're already behind the 8 ball, right? You're kind of like my Chicago Bears, already losing 2 games in division. You're already behind the 8 ball. That's not good. And it's also like the Dolphins, right? They're already 0-2 in the division. And typically, if you're 0-2 in the division, that doesn't help you at all for like later standings wise. So, hopefully, the Falcons can win their next game. Again, I'll break it down in the predictions and stuff like that. But yeah, and then I also thought a funny takeaway was the Falcons did cut Young-Hoo Koo, their kicker, right? And they ended up signing another kicker, and apparently this new kicker, he missed like multiple kicks in this game. So it really goes to show you that maybe, just maybe, you should have stuck with, Koo instead of just moving off of him that quickly. But, again, the Falcons probably live in this bit. Their organization probably ran at the fact like, well, it's kind of, what have you done late for me lately? And dude hasn't really done much of anything as of late. So, yeah. Raiders at Commanders, it was a straight blowout. Marcus Mariota, he came in, did his thing. It looked like it was going to be competitive, but then again, just like what happened last week, the Raiders, they kept turning the ball over. Geno Smith, I think, threw a pick 6 and whatever, and then obviously the Commanders took advantage of that. Nothing else to say. Hopefully, that means for my Bears, the Raiders are a team that we can beat fairly easily. So there's that. And then probably the last blowout of the game is really last blowout. Well, technically 2 more blowouts, but the other blowout was Seahawks Saints. This game was uncompetitive from start to finish. Like, at one point it was like 21, I think, nothing, right? The Seattle had their way with the Saints. Like, completely just had their way. There was nothing that the Saints could do to counteract whatever Seattle was doing. Seattle just imposed their will, took care of business, and made it to where the Saints are just nothing special, which, that's what they are. And it's kind of depressing for the Saints, because the last few weeks they have been playing really hard football, competitive football. It's just they came up short. But this week it was just straight domination. But right now the Saints are probably in that position where they're looking to be probably, up there for number 1 overall pick next year, or for this upcoming draft next year, for the 2026 NFL draft. So we'll see, right? And then I guess you can say the last game of the night, which was the Chiefs with the Giants, was kind of a blowout. It was kind of a blowout from a perspective that the only player that stood out on the Giants tonight was probably Cam Scatterbo. Or Scatterbo. he would when I looked at the when I because I watched this game because it's a Sunday night football game, right? The only thing that stood out to me from the Giants Chiefs game, from a Giants perspective, is that Cam Scatterboo was the only guy that did much of anything. He legitimately was their offense. Like that was it. Once Tyron Tracy, I think, went out due to injury because he took a pretty bad shot. Cam Scatterboo was the offense, and that's all he legitimately did. Russell Wilson was not what the Russell Wilson of last week against the freaking Cowboys, which again shows you how real bad the Cowboys defense is, especially when Caleb Williams has a career day on that defense. But Russell Wilson was basically relatively held in check. He turned the ball over multiple times. And realistically, the Chiefs, who played pretty much a mid-game, they basically get by because they played a team with a quarterback that sucks. If they had a quarterback that was anything better, or Russell Wilson played like the Russell Wilson of last week, they probably win the game. But because of it, because of Russell Wilson's terrible play, like I think they forced a turnover on the Chiefs at the end of the half. They have the ball in the red zone, and then Russell Wilson throws up a prayer for whatever reason when they had enough time on the clock. He underthrows it to Malik Neighbors, and the game and it's picked off. And then the Chiefs go down the field, and if I can remember, they get a nice little field goal out of that. And it's like, bro, what the heck are y'all doing? I don't know, man. I don't know. They did this kind of tease moment where Jackson Dart got in the game, but they just ran the ball. So you have to wonder at some point if Russell Wilson keeps putting on these performances where no, it's clear the Giants can win a game. They just need better quarterback play. Maybe we'll see Jackson Dart sooner rather than later. But this was another game like with the Commanders game. If they had better play from their quarterback, they probably honestly would have won this game. Like the Chiefs did not play good by any means necessary. They did not look good on off. Their offense still looks janky. They can't run the ball. They can barely pass the ball, right? And then their defense, for all we can say, it looks average at best. It's a defense that teams can put points up on the board and do well. But props to the Chiefs. They found a way to win a game, a tough game on the road, and it prevents them from going 0-3, which I think for the standard NFL fans, it's like, damn it, man. The one time we could have the Chiefs 0-3 in the season, the Giants can't do their dang job. So the Giants are still winless. It only intensifies that hot seat for Brian Daboll, unless, shit. Unless Jackson Dart is the saving grace there. But yeah. All right, now let me talk about some games that I did watch or slightly watch. I guess so the only other game I didn't watch, crazy enough, was Packers Browns. So I did not watch this game because I thought the Packers would win, and I had no urge to go watch a Packers Browns game, especially as a Bears fan. But thank God that the Browns did the Lord's work today as a Bears fan for me, and they end up coming from behind and upsetting the Packers. So basically, the Packers led this game for the most part. It was like 3-0 for I think up until halftime, and then the Packers get one more time, and the Packers end up getting a touchdown to make it 10-0. It was 10-0 for the longest time. So then what ends up happening is the Browns end up blocking a field goal because the Packers end up, they end up trying to go kick a field goal, I think, to realistically ice the game at that point in time. But the Packers game was the first of many games this week that ended up having their field goal blocked, right? Chiefs Giants, what is it after the Giants got their touchdown, right? They got their field goal attempt blocked, right? Or their extra point attack blocked. And that's what happened here. They got blocked. The Browns find a way to get 3 points. And then they end up getting a touchdown. And then Jordan Love throws an interception, which sets up the Browns to win the game, and they end up kicking the walk-off field goal to beat and upset the Packers. One gritty win by the Browns. Props to their defense for legitimately holding the Packers offense that was scoring crazy points the first 2 weeks of the season, like crazy, scoring points up and down the field and everything, right? And the Browns defense held the Packers offense in check. And then, when you look at the Packers side of things, one, I'm laughing because I'm a Bears fan, but that's a really bad loss by the Packers. Like, you beat a team that, and basically, when you look at the two teams, yes, the Browns have a really good defense, but at the end of the day, you have to beat the Browns. Like, just because the Browns have a really good defense doesn't mean you should be losing this game because they have no offense. And your defense has been putting on masterclass performances. And for your defense to break down at the last moment, it is truly a bad loss there. And then again, for the offense, the Packers, it only goes to show you why there are doubters on Jordan Love, why people don't think Jordan Love, is worth the contract he's being paid right now, because situations like this where he throws an untimely pick, an untimely interception, which basically leads to the Browns winning the game. Like, now again, I was watching the game. Now why the Packers were throwing the ball, I have no clue. They probably should have just been running the ball, especially if it was late in the game, and stuff like that. And the Packers, they lost a winnable game that they probably should have won to be 3-0 in the division, but now because they lost, now they're 2-1, and now they're going to be going to Dallas to play the Dallas Cowboys. But I expect them to probably beat the Cowboys in Week 4, because that's going to be the Sunday night game next week, right? So there's that. Another game that realistically I didn't really pay attention to or watch. I had it on my TV, but I was mostly watching the Bears game, and that was the Broncos Chargers game, right? This game was a back and forth game. The little bits and pieces I did see, the Broncos actually played good for about maybe 3, maybe 4 somewhat quarters and a half. But the Chargers, they found a way, they gritted their way to a win. Justin Herbert had an insane touchdown throw to Keenan Allen, where like he had a defender in his face, right? And then he throws it in a way where it doesn't get blocked from the defender in his face. And on top of it, Keenan Allen makes a crazy catch, and the ball gets past his Broncos defender that honestly could have made a play and intercepted the ball, right? And because of it, that helps them tie the game, and then they get another stop, and then they kick the game-winning field goal to beat the Denver Broncos. Geez, man. Broncos back-to-back weeks lose on walk-off field goals, man. But it was crazy. Like, the Broncos legitimately controlled that game for a good chunk of that game, and then they ended up losing, right? But Bo Nix, again, he didn't have the best of starts. 14 for 25 for 153 yards, passing 1 TD. He hasn't been good this year. Like, he has not been good to start the year off, like, at all. Like, all 3 weeks, he has not been good. He did not turn the ball over this week like he did the last 2 weeks, but he's not realistically winning games for the Broncos. Like, he's absolutely struggling in these games for the Broncos. And it goes to show you. I say this in my prediction videos, right? I say that the reason why Jayden Daniels doesn't look like he did last year is because people got film on Jayden Daniels now. The same thing is applying to Bo Nix. People got film on Bo Nix now, and got film on how Sean Payton calls games for Bo Nix, and now defenses are better prepared, and it's basically up to Bo Nix to say, all right, dude, time to adjust to the adjustments that are being made for you. Can you be that franchise guy for the Broncos? Otherwise, you're just another guy. And it's real funny that now these dudes are looking, Jayden Daniels and Bo Nix, they're looking like average players, at best. But again, I don't mean to toot my own horn with the Bears, but Caleb Williams, yeah, he didn't look good in week 1, but in week 2, He did look better from that week 1 performance, and then obviously you saw how he played today against the Cowboys, are by far his best performance as a pro. So there's something to be said that he's figuring out, as opposed to the other guys. They're kind of half-heartedly, finding ways to try to do something, but it's clearly not working. Again, Justin Herbert, he's doing a damn good job. Threw for over 300 yards. He did have an interception this game, and he did have 5 sacks. But he had 300 yards passing, 1 TD, and everything. The rushing attack did do well. Najee Harris actually did go down to an injury. I think an ankle injury. He had to be carted off the field. I don't know. I saw him it was a play action pass, right? And moment he stepped, he just fell to his knees or fell to his knee, and then just boom, was done, right? Justin Herbert had to literally hop over him just to do everything, and he ended up getting carted off the field. So that's only good for Amari and Hampton. He'll get more carries and stuff like that going forward. But you have to hope that it's not too bad for Najee Harris, unless he may have broke his ankle or something. But yeah, I don't know what happened there. But again, another gritty win for the Chargers, right? And they have complete control of this division. They're 3-0. I know my Uncle Daryl, if you watch my NFL predictions, he's high on the Chargers this year being a Super Bowl contender. If they keep it up, man, they legitimately can be a contender. They already beat in the Chiefs, they beat in the Raiders, and now they beat in the Broncos. So if they taken care of business in the first 3 weeks, and that's beating your division rivals the first 3 weeks of the season. It's crazy. One, I think that's insane. That's how their schedule started off. They play all 3 of their division rivals to start the season off. So I don't know what the NFL was doing scheduling them to play 3 division rivals, but hey, it paid off for them, because then guess what? Now they're 3-0. They're already got a leg up on a game on each of their Chiefs, the Raiders, and the Broncos. So basically, if they want to completely control the division for good, you got to go to Kansas City, beat them in Kansas City. You got to beat the Raiders one more time at home, and then you got to go to Denver and beat Denver in their building. And if they actually accomplish that and they go 6-0 in their division, then that only sets them up to not only one, potentially maybe be the number 1 seed based on how the Bills and the Ravens do, right? But it also sets them up not only to win the division, but it sets them up to essentially lock in a good spot in the playoffs, at least maybe potentially be like a 3rd seed or something. But if they keep it up, that's the thing, right? I think they play. I gotta see who they play. So they're playing New York next week. So that's a pretty winnable game. So they have a good chance at going 4-0, right? They do have a good chance at going 4-0, and then probably their next toughest game is against the Commanders, and that will be based on if Jaden Daniels is back by then. But you get the point, right? You get the point. So there's that. But a good win from the Chargers. Another game that I was kind of tuning on and off a bit was the Cardinals and the 49ers. Now, this was a defensive battle. It was it was just really a defensive battle, right? Just a straight defensive battle. It was 6-6 for the longest time. And it went crazy, right? It just went crazy. So what happened late in the game, it was definitely a tie game, right? I think it was 13-13. Tie game. And Mac Jones, the 49ers, get a stop in in Cardinals territory. They get the ball, but then Mac Jones, he's trying to do much and evade the pressure. One of the 49ers offensive linemen gets called for a holding. It results in the Cardinals getting a safety, right? So they're up 15-13 at this point in the game. So all they got to do is basically run out the clock, get first downs. They can secure the win against the 49ers and pull off what some people may deem as an upset, right? Now, that's what they were doing, right? And for whatever reason, they throw the ball. Kyler Murray throws it. The receiver can't come down with the catch. Clock stops. It gives the ball back to the 49ers. 49ers go down the field, and they end up actually, and they got a big gain off of a Christian McCaffrey screen. They get to go all the way down the field. They set up for a game-winning field goal for Eddie Pinheiro, and Eddie Pinheiro knocks it in, and the 49ers beat the Cardinals 16-15. Um, you know, crazy game. I bet 49ers fans are happy that they have a kicker that actually made a kick as opposed to Jake Moody missing a kick. So that's good for Eddie Pinheiro. That's good for the 49ers. It seemed that they may have got a kicker there. Um, Another takeaway that I apparently saw from this game is the fact that Cardinal fans are, I guess, now getting upset with Marvin Harrison Jr. There were some times in the game where Marvin Harrison Jr. is like wide open and he's dropping passes. So it's starting to look like he might actually be a bust, which is crazy to say. And the skills is definitely not translating well to the pro game like he did in college. I don't know what's going on there. And I also forgot to mention, going back to that Chargers Broncos game. Quentin Johnson, man, I don't know what the hell happened, but I think Quentin Johnson has figured it out, man. After a few years, or I think about after the past few years where this dude was struggling, like he had drop passes, he couldn't